What's up guys, my name's Brandon and iOS 18.2 is here and it is jam-packed with more than 70 new features and changes, including a redesigned mail app, some useful new Apple Intelligence features, a big change to photos, and plenty more. And we have a lot to cover, so let's get straight to it. Okay, so we're going to cover the Apple Intelligence features later, but let's start with the non-Apple Intelligence features that are available for all devices. And that starts in the Mail application because we have a redesigned Mail application with iOS 18.2. So here is the Mail application on iOS 18.1.1 on the left, 18.2 on the right. So you can tell right away up top, we now have categories inside of our stock Mail application, similar to something you would see on like a Gmail, for example. So first off, we have primary. So this is going to break down and categorize messages that matter the most. These are the more time sensitive, more important emails. And then right next to that, we have transactions. And this is going to show you your receipts, your orders, your deliveries, anything that has to do with a transaction will show up right here. And then we have updates, which is going to give you things like subscriptions, social media notifications, and news. Sometimes some newsletters will slip into there as well. But if you don't get your newsletters in here, they will be over here in this last tab, which is promotions. This is going to show you mostly marketing messages, and of course some newsletters will come in here as well. And anytime you're in one of these categories, you can just simply tap on it and that will take you to all mail. So if you want to see all of your mail messages in one section, you can just tap that and you get this kind of hidden section for all mail. So anytime you're in one of these and you'll see the little stacking animation right there, it will just take you to all mail. And by the way, you will also notice in the primary inbox that if you swipe over, you have additional options here, including one that says clear. And that's because if you have an email that's in your primary and also in another category, like this one, for example, is also in transactions, which is signified by the green glyph icon right there, you can clear it out of your primary, but it will remain in the transactions menu and of course in your all mail section as well. And if you go into the updates or the promotions category and you tap on one of these senders, you will see this new interface here that will show you a new view. So this is a digest view that groups all of your messages from one sender into a single bundle for easy browsing. So if you get a lot of newsletters, for example, you can go into here and you'll see up top it says 18 updates, 45 messages, 13 new, and it will have all those emails right here in this one section, which is really nice. And you'll notice up top that we have it sticky right here with the glyph icon along with the name of the sender. And if you tap on the three dots up here in the top right, it will show you who that sender is. You can mark them as read, you can archive all messages, and you can even categorize the sender. So when you tap on that, you can choose if you want it to automatically categorize or if you want to manually categorize this individual person or company, you can change that right here. And you'll also notice where it says 22 new, there's a up and down arrow to the right of that. If you tap on that, that allows you to see all messages or just the messages from that specific category, which in this instance, it is promotions. And you might have also noticed a big difference to the UI here, and that is because we have a glyph icon to the left of every mail message. So whether that's a business or an individual, that will determine what that glyph icon to the left looks like. And this can also show the company profile picture or the company logo, like for USPS, for example, or for Amazon or for Apple, you will see their actual logo right there next to it. But if you're not a fan of these categories whatsoever and you just want to go back to the default mail application like we had before, well, you can do that on 18.2. So if you tap on the three dots up in the top right, you can go right back to the list view if you don't want those categories, and you still get the added bonus of having the glyph icons to the left of your messages. Now also you'll notice that we have a section here for about categories, and if you go into that, it will show you some really interesting stats about your emails, about your mail messages that you receive. So for example, under primary, it tells me that in the last week, Mail categorized 225 messages as primary from 87 total messages. And then down at the bottom, you have a reset manual categorization button if you were to manually categorize any of your your messages. And by the way, you can quickly do that by swiping over on a message and going to more right here. And then if you go down, we have categorize sender. So you can do that from this view by simply tapping on that, and that will allow you to manually categorize that specific email and that specific sender. So if I want that to always go under, let's say, updates, for example, it will do that every time. And it says recategorize all messages from Google Alerts to updates. If I tap on continue, now everything will go into the updates section. And then if we go into our settings and go to mail and then into notifications and then go all the way down to the bottom to customize notifications, if you go into here, we have a brand new section called badge count. And this allows you to choose and see only the number of unread messages that are categorized as primary. So for example, if you don't want to get a ton of notifications as a badge alert on your home screen, you can choose to only show unread messages that are marked as primary instead of every single unread message in mail. Now, iOS 18.2 also adds some pretty important changes to the Photos application, which lately has been getting a lot of hate, but maybe that'll subside after 18.2. So number one, if you go into an image that is tall, like this, for example, it is no longer zoomed out by default. And if you want to view it in full view, you have to tap on it. That's how it was before on pre-iOS 18.2 devices. But now when you go into that image, it is not zoomed out, and you don't have to tap on it to get it into full screen or being able to see the full image. Now, that might be a pro or a con depending on what you prefer, but what you'll also notice is down at the bottom, we can now see the carousel of our images without having to tap on the image to see them. And if you go into a photo or a video, you'll see some changes here as well. So up top, before it showed the date and the time over in the left, now that has been moved to the top center, and it shows the location up top, the date under it, and then the time to the right of that. So that is a little bit different. Also, the ProRes icon looks slightly different in 18.2 compared to 18.1. And then over to the right of that, where we have the shared album glyph, that also has a slightly new look. And when you tap on it, the glyph icon is no longer filled in like it was before. And then up in the top right, we used to have an X to get out of that image or that video, but now that is gone. And now we have a back arrow in the top left. But hold up, there's something else new here in the Photos app in 18.2, specifically when it comes to video. So before, when you scrubbed on a video, this is what it looked like. It would just show you the timestamps at the bottom on the left and the right. It's pretty much the same, but you can now see milliseconds. So you can scrub frame by frame with 18.2. And here's another one. Check out what happens when the video ends on 18.1 compared to 18.2. So you'll notice that with iOS 18.1.1, the video loops, but it does not loop in 18.2. Now that is not the default behavior, but if you go into your settings and go to photos, we now have a new toggle for loop videos. And you can turn that off if you don't want your videos to loop. And there's also some nice user experience enhancements when it comes to navigating your collections. So your collections are things like the albums, pin collections, media types, those are all considered collections. And you'll notice that now when you go into those, we have a back arrow up in the top left-hand corner, whereas before we had an X up in the top right. And if you wanted to get out of there, you could only swipe down or tap on the X. Now you can do the more natural swipe over from the left of the screen to go back to the previous view. There's even a change in the animations when you go into one of your collections. So if you go into albums, for example, you can see that the animation is different. Before, it would just pop up from the bottom and go to the top. Now it pops over from the right-hand side and kind of goes left. And when you go into there, you can see as well right here that create has been moved to the top right with the three dots next to it. And then we have that back arrow to the left on the top. And then right down there in the middle where it shows personal, shared, and activity, all of those are slightly smaller here in 18.2. And also this UI takes up the full screen, whereas before you could tell this was just one long card. You could see the kind of view of photos in the background before. Now it's the full screen. And if you tap on those three dots up in the top right-hand corner, you can now sort by custom order or by name. And you can also change the view to be a grid or a list view. view. And I like this view a lot better because when you change it to a grid view, it changes the look on the main photos page as well to show up larger than what it looked like beforehand, which looked just like 18.1 if you left that at list view. And if we go into our utilities collection, you'll notice a change in here as well. Aside from the UI, once again taking up the full screen instead of just being a big tall card, and also that back arrow in the top left, we also have recently saved and recently viewed with new glyph icons. So the eye is larger and no longer has a circle for recently viewed, and recently saved now has a little clock in the bottom right hand corner. Also, you'll notice that favorites now shows up as a utility up at the very top, and also the recently edited and recently shared glyph icons have slightly been changed as well. And if you go into the recently viewed album, you'll notice that underneath it now shows the amount of items that you've recently viewed. So mine shows 73. And if you go to the three dots in the top right, you now have the option to remove all of these from recently viewed. So if you tap on that, it will say this at the bottom. It says remove all from recently viewed, and they will remain in your photo library. It's basically like erasing your history. So if you tap on that, your recently viewed will now be cleared. And you can do the same thing for recently shared as well. So if you go into recently shared and go to the three dots up in the top right, you can now remove all from recently shared. And by the way, if you go into any of your utilities, it will show the amount of items in there right beneath it with a photos glyph icon to the left. And we also, once again, have that back arrow in the top left. And you'll also notice that when you go to share a photo, we not only have a new AirDrop icon. So before, this is what it looked like. So we had AirDrop right there. It has one less line than it had before. And also these icons now show up in dark mode if you have dark mode icons on your home screen. And this applies to all of the glyph icons in settings, by the way. So if you have dark mode icons, even if you're in light mode, it will show those dark mode icons right there. They don't look the best in light mode, but in dark mode, they look phenomenal. So let me switch this over to dark mode and you can kind of see how those look. And there's also a pretty big bug fix when it comes to the Photos app with iOS 18.2, because Apple says that this update fixes an issue where recently captured photos do not appear immediately in the all photos grid, your main grid right here. That was one of the biggest complaints I saw, especially on TikTok and social media. A lot of people had that issue. So luckily that has been fixed with this update. Now we also have a pretty big change in the Find My application, because now if you go to one of your AirTags or to one of your items, you'll notice that we have a new section called Lost AirTag. And from here, you have the option to show contact info. So when you tap on that, that takes you here where you get a new splash screen that says tap to reveal information and allow others to get in touch. So this is not a new feature, but this is a new interface and kind of a new onboarding area to put in that information if somebody finds your AirTag and holds their phone up to it. But the real interesting feature here is underneath of that, where it says share item location, because this is something brand new that's going to make a big difference when it comes to locating lost items that have an AirTag in them. So this says get help finding your lost AirTag by sharing its location with an airline or a trusted person. The person who opens the link will be able to see the location of your AirTag for a limited time. So if you tap on continue, it gives you a link that you can tap to copy or share with a trusted person or an airline so they can see your AirTag on a map in Safari. And when you go to that link, you'll see that it says use Apple account or continue as Apple partner. Now what's interesting is that Apple has announced that they're teaming up with more than 15 airlines to implement systems that will accept location links to help locate lost luggage, and they will continue as an Apple partner in this instance to log in and be able to see where your potentially lost or stolen luggage is located without you having to constantly talk to them, contact them, or even show them with your Find My app, where your luggage is located. Now they, as the airline, can see in real time where your luggage is updated. And that is a big deal. And here's what that map will look like inside of Safari. So not only will it show the active location for that AirTag, but it will also show the full address, the last update, the geo coordinates, and if you scroll down, it will also show who it's registered to with a phone number and the serial number. And once you share that link, if you go back to the share item location section, you'll notice that it now shows that you can stop sharing item location. So if you don't want that link to be active anymore, if you don't want the person to track your AirTag anymore, you can revoke it right there. It also shows how many people have visited that link that you sent, along with the default expiration date and time. We have a couple of changes in Safari with 18.2. So if you go to the Safari start page and go to the bottom and go to edit and then go down to background image, you'll notice that we have some new wallpapers. So we have 6 new wallpapers included with 18.2. You can just tap on those. You will have to download them, but you can kind of see what that looks like in the background. Pretty cool. There's also now a live activity when you download something in Safari. So if we go out of there as we're downloading it, you'll see up top that it shows our live activity. And also if we swipe down to go to our notification center, you can see the live activity progress right there. And if you go into your settings and go to the Safari section and you scroll down until you get to the history and website data section, we now have the option to import or export any of our history or website data. So you can import from a third-party web browser or application if you would like to right there. And of course, when you go to export, you can choose what you want to export. And right above that, we have a toggle for not secure connection warning. And also Apple says that HTTPS priority upgrades URLs to HTTPS whenever possible. So instead of HTTP, which is not as secure, they will be, upgraded to HTTPS if possible. And then also in our settings, if we go to the passwords section and then under here, under save passwords, we now have an option to do not ask when signing in. So if you sign into a website using information that you've not used before, you can have it set to not ask you to save that password when you sign in. Heading into the podcast application, we have some pretty nice changes for podcasts in 18.2. So if you go over to the library tab, you'll notice that we have a brand new section called categories. And this will just give you a list of different categories for podcasts. So if you're interested in, for example, relationships, you can go into this and you can see different podcasts. This is a great way to discover new podcasts in a category that you like. There's always been kind of a lack of discovery for podcasts, in my opinion, especially smaller podcasts. But I've noticed that this new categories section makes it a lot easier to find podcasts that you may have never heard of before. So if you scroll down, you can see top shows, you can see essentials, top episodes, new shows, which is really cool, and also more categories right here. And of course, it will show which shows you are currently following. It will show them in this section as well. So let's say you're really into science. If you go into the science category, you now have an option up here in the top right to favorite that category. So when you favorite that and then you go back, you will notice that it now shows up top. It's almost like pinning these specific categories. And if you look under each category, it will show you how many podcasts you currently follow that are kind of categorized under those categories. And if you don't have any, like documentary, for example, it will not show anything. And if you tap into there, that's where you can get some ideas for some things that you might want to add to documentary. Now, when you tap on manage up in the top right, this is where you can manage your categories. You can favorite and unfavorite right here. You can go down to suggested and also popular. So if you want to add more categories to your main page, this is where you can do it. So if I want to add true crime, for example, let's say we want to add stand up as well, and maybe some tech news. So there we go. Now tap on done. And now in our categories, you can see that we have stand up, tech news, true crime, all of that right here. And if we want to see some good true crime, we can go in here and kind of, just look through these and see which ones are good. And you'll also notice that when you go to the search tab, it's now a lot more personalized based on your relevant categories and collection. So it shows tech news, for example, which I just added, all of those right here. It's just kind of better understanding of what you listen to. In the music application, if you swipe over on a song, we have a new glyph icon. So before it used to be a trash can, now now it's just a circle with a minus in it. And that applies to the queue as well. So if you swipe over to remove a song from the queue, it now has this new glyph instead of the text that just said remove before. Also in the Apple Music and Apple TV applications, you can now use natural language search. So you can type in essentially how you are thinking about it in your head. So for example, I type in hype EDM music and it will give me results that don't necessarily match that text, but it understands natural language, so it will show me results that are hype EDM songs. Or for example, I can search for hype 90s music and it will show me different songs that are from the 90s, and you can see it even says release year, and all of these are in the 1990s, indicating that the natural language search is working. And this also works in the Apple TV application. So I typed in movies with kidnapping and you can see it gave me a list of results right here, whereas iOS 18.1.1 on the left gave me no results. And just like with music, I can type in 90s movies with kidnappings and it will show me the different movies that were released in the 90s that might have a kidnapping in the plot. In the Voice Memos application, we now have support for layered recording. So if you start recording something like an instrumental, for example, and then you stop that and you go in to edit this recording right there, edit recording, you'll notice that we now have a plus in the bottom right hand corner. And when you tap on that, that adds a second layer to the recording. So if you maybe wanted to lay down vocals over an existing idea or instrumental, whatever the case may be, you can now do that and you can have multiple layers in one recording. And if you tap on the options up in the top left hand corner, we also have a layer mix slider where you can slide it to, have the first track or the second track be more loud and prevalent. So vocals, for example, you might want to be a little bit louder. And in the top right hand corner, when you tap on the three dots, you'll notice that we have more options now. Before you could only trim, but now you can separate layers, copy transcript, and also undo. And you could also import your 2-track projects directly into Logic Pro if you have an iPhone 16 Pro or Pro Max. And speaking of audio, if we go into our settings and go down to the sounds and haptics section, if you scroll down, we have a brand new option here under built-in speaker for volume limit. And this allows you to limit the maximum volume for your iPhone's built-in speaker. So if you have this enabled, you have a slider from 20 to 90%. That way you can set a limit for how loud your iPhone speaker can get. And then something also related to the volume is inside of our accessibility settings. So we have a brand new option for bringing the volume slider back to the lock screen permanently. So if you go into your accessibility and then down here to audio and visual, so we have this new toggle called always show volume control. And what this does is it will always show your volume slider on the lock screen when you're playing audio, either through headphones or through the built-in speaker. So right now, the default is that it does not show the volume slider down there, but if you turn this on and then you go back, you will be able to see the volume slider at all times now. And then if we go down a little bit further in this audio and visual section, we also have a brand new option for add audio in calls. So in here it says any audio from apps along with microphone input will be audible during a call. And while we're in our settings, if we go all the way down to apps, you'll notice that we have a brand new section up top for default applications. And this allows you to manage the default apps on your iPhone all in one section. So instead of going into messages settings, instead of going into Safari settings, all of those to set a default application, now you can do it from one spot. And you can see you can set the defaults for messaging and calling as well, not just in the EU. But also you can see that inside of our messages settings, we have a new section here for default messaging app. And that gives you the same, setup, the same options to choose from, but that's in here as well. Now we also have some changes to the camera control if you have an iPhone 16 series. So if you go into your settings and then go into camera and then to camera control up top, if you scroll down to the bottom, we have a new accessibility shortcut. So if you go into this will just take you into your accessibility settings. So it's a quicker and easier way to get there. And then down here at the bottom, we also have a new option for double click speed. So before we had double light press speed, but now you can change the speed of the double click. And then also in the camera control, we now have the option to lock our exposure and our autofocus. So if you press and hold on the button on the camera control button that will lock the exposure and the autofocus, as you can see right there. I'm not clicking in, I'm just pressing in on this button and it will lock it, as you can see there. Now in the settings, you do need to have that turned on, as there is a new toggle here as well. And speaking of camera control, there's a kind of hidden setting related to the camera control as well, because it's not in the camera control settings. So if you go into your main settings and go to display and brightness, right down here we have require screen on for camera control. And it says launching a camera app with camera control requires the screen to be on. So if you have that turned on, that means that your screen needs to be on. If you turn it off, that means that your screen doesn't have to be on. And while we're on the topic of the camera, we also have a bug fix from Apple that says fixes an issue where night mode photos in camera could appear degraded when capturing long exposures on the 16 Pro and Pro Max. In the control center, we have a new toggle for type to Siri. So that is what it looks like there inside of the control center. When you tap on that, that will launch the type to Siri interface. And also if you have the vehicle motion cues control center toggle and you tap on that and turn that on, you will notice that the kind of animation up there, the notification comes from the dynamic island. Same with when we turn that off. So if you go in here and turn that off, you can see it will show that in the dynamic island up top. If you use iPhone mirroring on your Mac, you can now use iPhone mirroring while using your iPhone as a hotspot for your Mac. You cannot do that before this update. We have new shortcut actions for the fitness application. Before we did not have any, but now we can open the fitness settings and also search Fitness Plus as a shortcut action, along with these ones at the bottom to open awards and open different parts of the fitness application. In the stocks application, you can now finally see pre-market prices. In the App Store, if you go to the arcade section and then go to all games, up in the top right-hand corner, we used to have those 3 lines as a drop down. Now we have this new button. Before, when you tapped on that menu, it basically just condensed everything into this new look. But now with 18.2, it actually gives you a menu and you have different options here. And I also like how you can now turn off game previews if you don't want those. If you're an Apple News Plus subscriber, you now have access to Sudoku. In the wallet application, if you go to your Apple Cash card, you'll notice that underneath of our balance, we have new text for FDIC, and also it says green dot bank. And if you have the AirPods Pro 2, we now have support for the hearing aid feature in the United Arab Emirates, and also the hearing test feature, which is separate from the hearing aid feature. That is also now available in multiple new countries, as you can see listed on the screen right now. Okay, so now let's get to the Apple Intelligence features. So these are only going to be available on Apple Intelligence supported devices, which is the iPhone 15 Pro and later, and that includes all of the iPhone 16 series as well. And I think that this round of Apple Intelligence features are more impressive than what we saw with 18.1. So let's jump right into it with the new application you'll notice on your home screen called Image Playground. So this allows you to create original images based on people in your camera roll or with text. So for example, you can see right down here at the bottom, you will get suggestions for who you want to maybe start with, whether that's yourself or somebody else, or you could tap on the people icon right here and it will notice people from your camera roll. It will automatically import the people from your camera roll along with an image. And when you tap on one of those people, it will give you options for, the starting point. So what looks most like the person. That way you can get a more accurate, look for your image that you're about to create. So I'm going to choose this photo right here for this example, and we'll go to done. So now it's using that photo as the reference to make my little animated photo right here. And then underneath of this, we have our suggestions. So we can maybe make myself a superhero, astronaut, whatever you want. But if you tap on show more, that allows you to see all of the themes, the costumes, and everything. So we'll just do disco, for example, will be the theme. Our costume is going to be, let's just say astronaut. And if we want any accessories, we can do that. So let's just say we're going to do a bow tie somehow on an astronaut suit and then place it. So maybe we're an astronaut that's in the mountains. We can add that there as well. And all of those attributes lead you to this photo right here. Now, if you can't find exactly what you're looking for in this dropdown, you can describe what you want to be added to the photo. So for example, looking at this photo, let's say I want to have a red suit. So I'm just going to put in red suit. And now if we add that in into there, it will change our suit color to be red. So it also changed the little, inside section of the helmet. But you can see, you can kind of just type in different changes that you want to make as well. It's pretty cool. And then also if you tap right here on the plus, you can change the style from animation to illustration. So if you like the illustration look better, you can choose that. And then you also have the option to choose a photo that you want to make. So for example, I have one of Tim Cook here, and you can see that when I add that photo of Tim Cook and I add a couple of attributes here, it will make that. So you can have an animated Tim Cook in your library as well. Let's say we want to have a black hat on Tim Cook here as well. So we can add that in as a custom, thing that we want to add. And there we go. He has a black hat on. And again, you could also create an image completely from scratch. So you don't even need a reference photo. So for example, if I type in orange cat riding a surfboard on a volcano, if I type that in, it will give me that result. So there we go. We can see what that looks like right there. And we can continue to add on to it if we would like. But that's pretty awesome. I mean, it's pretty accurate. I've noticed that it's not only accurate with people and like the faces are very accurate, but also when you type something in to describe your image, it gives you a pretty good result right off the bat. And of course, if you want to save these photos, just tap on done right there, and that will bring you to this page where you can tap on the three dots to copy it, duplicate. You can save right down here in the bottom left. If you tap on the share sheets, you can save it. And of course you can, save this as somebody's contact photo if you would like to. And you can also access the image playground in the freeform application. So if you tap on the photos in the bottom right-hand corner, you will notice that we have an option for image playground, and you have a slightly different interface here where you can create images and instantly input them into freeform. But this right here is what I think a lot of people are going to love, and this is called Genmoji. This allows you to create your own custom emoji to fit the vibe of any conversation, and you can see some of my custom ones right here. So to create your own custom Genmoji, all you need to do is go into your emoji picker here, and you'll see describe an image. You can type that into there and then tap this, or you can just tap this right off the bat to bring up the full Genmoji interface. So let's say we want to type in focused with headphones. So maybe I want to have like a focused face with headphones on to maybe indicate that I'm trying to study or something like that. So if we type that in, you can see it will give us some examples. And of course you can continue to tweak this as well to whatever face you would like. So here we go. I like this one better. I put in face focused with headphones and glasses, and that is the result that we got right there. So you could either tap on that, or you could tap these three dots and then just go to add sticker. So I just tapped on it, but you can see that's what it looks like. And then after you add that for the first time, it will always be saved down here in your recents. You can see it right there. Now we could also do things like Christmas latte, for example. So if I want to create a Christmas latte emoji, we can do that. Or if I put in a birthday smiley with cake, it will give us this result right here. So maybe if you want to tell somebody, it's their birthday to enjoy, you could have that right there. So really the whole point is to combine, multiple emojis and multiple ideas to create one really cool, really nice emoji. So I think this one's cool. It has a lot of detail in it. So just tap on that and that will add it. And once again, when you put these Genmojis in your text field here, or even when you react to a message, the other person will be able to see those as long as they're on 18.2. And one little keyword I like to throw in here for some really creative emojis is trippy. So if you put in trippy along with something else, you can get some really cool emojis like this one right here. So you can even put like trippy cat, for example, and you can create some pretty funny, pretty unique emojis. And if you ever forget what you typed in to create that emoji, all you have to do is tap and hold on the emoji and it will show up right there in the text field above. So tap and hold, birthday smiley with cake. And then for, this one, for example, I just put surprised face pointing and it gave me this emoji right there, which I like. And then this one right here, I just typed in yelling at megaphone and it gave me this one. Something else you can do with Genmoji is use a person in your camera roll as an emoji. So for example, if I type in me with a hat, obviously it doesn't know who me is, so I will have to choose a person. And just like in the image playground, it will pull up a list of people from my camera roll, or I can create an emoji right there. So I'm just gonna select myself. We'll tap on done. So now it shows that I am the person, and it's going to create me with a hat as an emoji or a Genmoji. Now here's a big one. So now with iOS 18.2, we have ChatGPT support. So if you go into your Apple Intelligence settings and go down here under extensions, you'll notice that we now have ChatGPT, and this is disabled by default. So you will need to manually go ahead and enable this. And I think that most people will want to do this because now Siri will have an answer for everything, even if it's not Siri itself doing the legwork. And by the way, you can see right here that you can sign in to your ChatGPT account, but you do not need a ChatGPT account to use this feature. You can sign in if you want to link your activity to your existing account, but you do not need to sign in or create an account to use this feature. And there are multiple other key details that we need to discuss, like the daily limit and ChatGPT Plus, but we'll get into that in a moment. And I did also make a full separate video on ChatGPT with the most information that you'll see online about this extension and how it works on the iPhone and the Mac. So if you want to see that video, that is linked up in the cards right now and also in the description below. It'll probably answer a lot of questions that you might have. And also this toggle is turned on by default to confirm ChatGPT requests, and that basically means that Siri will prompt you that it's going to access ChatGPT, and you have to tap on yes to do that every single time. So I'd recommend most people turn that off. That way you don't need to confirm that you want to send the query to ChatGPT every single time. So let me show you how this works. Help me plan a 7-day trip to Japan with a mix of historical sites and food tours. And you can see it will say working with ChatGPT up top anytime that you are accessing ChatGPT, and it will give me an answer. You can see it will give me all of the days. It will give me basically a full itinerary here for if I was traveling to Japan for 7 days. That is awesome, and clearly not something that Siri could ever do. And even if you ask a basic question like what's 4 times 4, you can see that it will use Siri for that. But if you want to force it to use ChatGPT for any query, all you have to do is say ask ChatGPT either before or at the end of your request. So if I say ask ChatGPT what 4 times 4 is, you can see even for a question that Siri can answer, it will give me the answer using ChatGPT because I made sure to say to ask ChatGPT. And another pretty cool feature about ChatGPT is that it can create images using DALL-E. So even though we do have the image playground, you can use ChatGPT and DALL-E to create more lifelike images. So for example, ask ChatGPT to create a hyper-realistic image of a tabby cat. And there is the image that DALL-E created. So obviously not super realistic, but it's a lot more realistic than what you would get in like the image playground. And as far as the daily limit goes, I think that most people should not worry about this whatsoever. Basically, Apple just says that you'll have access to ChatGPT's advanced capabilities until you reach your daily limit, and additional requests will use the basic version for up to 24 hours. Now, Apple is simply informing us of OpenAI's rate limits for GPT-4o, which is the model being used. You can still use ChatGPT even if you exceed your limit. So even if this says over limit, you can still use ChatGPT perfectly fine. It's just going to use the basic version instead of the default model, which the basic version is still going to give you the same answer. It just may not be as complex of an answer as it would be if it were using the main, advanced capability, the main GPT-4o model. But again, most people will not need to worry about that. And if you want to know a lot more details about this and how the basic and advanced versions compare against each other, I will show that in my ChatGPT video, which again will be linked in the cards and in the description below. And then we also have some changes to the writing tools feature, which came with iOS 18.1. So this is awesome because now if you go into your writing tools, right up top, we have a describe your change input here, and this allows you to change whatever you want. So for example, if I want to select this right here, before, if I wanted to change the tone of this sentence, this paragraph here, I would have to choose between friendly, professional, and concise, and that was it. But now I can actually describe what I want to be changed. So if I want to make this funny, if I want to make this sad, I can put that in. Or I can say make this sad and also funny. And then if I put that in, it will make that paragraph more sad and more funny. So that uses Apple's AI models, but ChatGPT is also here inside of writing tools down at the bottom with a button called Compose. And this allows you to change anything that you want, but it also allows you to create something from scratch with just a sentence here for what you want to create. So for example, if I'm typing into somewhere where we already have text, you can include all text or, selected text. You can do that right there. And then if you type in, let's just say, create a lighthearted poem about Tim Cook. And if we put that in, it will give us a poem based on the prompt that we just put in right there. So you can see in Cupertino's halls, a leader stands tall, Tim Cook, the captain steering the call. So you can see kind of how that goes right there. And the best part about this feature is that it gives you really good suggestions. So it says, mention Apple's impact on culture, add a stanza about sustainability. You can just see it gives you really great suggestions to make your text better. So I think this feature is awesome, and it's a lot easier to use than going into ChatGPT itself. Also with the compose feature, if you tap on the plus to the left right here, you have the option for file or image. And this allows you to have ChatGPT reference that file or that image to give you more information. So for example, if I attach a PDF about Apple Intelligence and ask what's in this PDF, obviously you can ask a lot more advanced questions than that, but I'm going to attach that and ask what's in the PDF, and now it will give me a breakdown of what was included in that, all without using Siri. This is just using Compose. So you can see it tells me the PDF is a press release, and it gives me all the details from that PDF. Now there's also a new feature called Image Wand, and this allows you to create an image from a sketch with words or from written text. So if you go into your toolkit right here, you'll see that we have a new tool here, and that is the Image Wand. So once you have that selected, just draw a circle at the bottom of the text that you have typed out, and it will create an image. It will pick up keywords from what you wrote, and it will create that image for you and put it in at the bottom of that, note right there, for example. And if you want to tweak this, you can. So if you want to add something onto it, just like we could with, Genmoji and Image Playground, you can add onto that here as well. So if I say water on road, okay, so that wasn't perfect. Let's go ahead and put water, for example. So maybe it just picked up on road. There we go. So you can see it's a little bit wet on the road now. So you will have to tweak around with it a little bit, but you can see you get different variations of it here as well. But where the image wand really shines is when you can create an image from a sketch as long as you have words there. So what I mean by this is my pizza drawing is not very good. I want to make my pizza drawing a lot better. So we can use the image wand to turn that sketch into a much better looking, colorful image. So all we need to do is circle that. So we're going to circle right here with this really cool animation. Circle that along with the text and take a look at this. It will pick up on the sketch and use that as a reference along with my text that said, "This is my pizza," and take a look at that. That looks a lot better than what I drew right there. So when we tap on done, it will actually replace that sketch and the written text and create that image for you. And you can also, again, tap on this if you want to tweak something after you save it. You can add in something in there as well. So if you wanted to add, maybe chicken, you could just put that in. So I'll just put in chicken, and we can add that as a topping on top of the pizza. And there you go. You can see some little chicken pieces right there. And of course you do get multiple variations as well. And then here's a really cool one for the iPhone 16 series with the camera control. We now have access to a brand new Apple Intelligence feature called Visual Intelligence. So if you hold the camera control button, you will see that we get a brand new interface here with a new little animation around the capture button with two options at the bottom that say ask and search. So the way this works is if you have something in front of your camera and you tap on ask, for example, it will use ChatGPT to describe what you are currently seeing. So if you want to know what breed a dog is, if you want to know a certain detail about something that it sees, you can just point at it and tap that and it will give you the answer. Or you could tap on search right here and it will search with Google to give you Google results of that image. So you can see it will show us the AirPods Pro 2 right there. Now, of course, you can also just take a picture and choose what you want to do later. And a real life use case for this would be like if you see a character on a popcorn box and you forget his name, all I did was pull out my phone, typed it into ChatGPT and it gave me the answer and it gave me the name of that character I was wondering about. So that is cool. Now, where this gets really awesome is where you can actually go to a restaurant or a location, and when you put your phone in front of that location, it will show you the name of it. And this will change in real time as you kind of move your phone around. It will show you the location of where you're pointing your phone at. But that's not it. When you tap on that menu of that location, it will give you additional options like the photos, the reviews, the hours, and we have the menu, the website. We have different quick actions down at the bottom where we can quickly access that. We can call them, we can see the menu, all of that just from pointing our phone at that restaurant and having access to visual intelligence. That is awesome. And again, this is much better than Google Lens, which I've used many times in the past because you don't have access to the menu, don't have access to a quick button to press, to call them. There's a lot of things that make this a lot better than Google Lens. So if you have an iPhone 16, definitely give this a try. I think it is pretty awesome. Now, as far as the overall performance and battery life, I have to say that iOS 18.2 is a solid improvement in performance over 18.1.1. So these are the Geekbench scores I got right here, much higher than 18.1 and 18.1.1. I've also noticed that less people are having the touch responsiveness issue. Some users are still having it, but it does seem to be a little bit less than before. But if you are still having touch issues, let me know in a comment down below. But as far as battery life, I have to say that battery life has also been better for me on 18.2 compared to 18.1 and 18.1.1. So if you had issues with battery drain, that very well could be resolved with this update as well. So now with all that being said, should you update to iOS 18.2? And I would say absolutely, especially if you have an Apple Intelligence device. There's big new features like ChatGPT, Genmoji, Image Playground, Image Wand. You have visual intelligence if you have an iPhone 16. There's a lot of great features that you need to take advantage of on 18.2. So for that reason alone, I think it is worth updating. But even if you don't have an Apple Intelligence device, the new Mail application and all the other features that I showed in this video also make it a pretty worthwhile update in my opinion. And also the fact that we have better performance and better battery life, at least for me and for most people, that's also a good reason to go ahead and update. And of course, we will also have security patches in this update as well if you want to keep your device as secure as possible. Apple has not published those just yet, but they will be out pretty soon, and I will leave that down in the description below. But anyways, guys, there you have it. That is iOS 18.2, a massive update, the biggest update to iOS 18 yet. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more about the Apple Intelligence feature specifically, and also if you want to see more about ChatGPT feature specifically, I will have those videos linked up in the cards and down in the description below for you to check out. And if you want to see more videos like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel by clicking that subscribe button down below. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.